So I want to welcome you. I really think this is a scoop for me.
My pleasure.
It's no secret that I am an admirer of yours for the longest time, and your programs are very lively and entertaining. So I've learned a lot from you. I have to say that.
I'm blushing probably as red as my hair. Vito, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. We've known each other almost 20 years. Here at Public Access TV.
Right.
It's going to be hard for me to turn over the interviewer role to you
and
be the
I will have a little difficulty, but
I'm not used to being a
I'll give
guest.
you ample time to even ask
Sure
me
you
questions if you like.
I'd love that.
Well, basically, I would like to ask about your programs, okay? We will show a little excerpt from your program,
Great.
Something to Talk About.
I'm Bonnie D. Graham, and this is Something to Talk About.
Let's give 'em something to talk about. A little mystery to figure out. Let's give 'em something to talk about. How about love, love?
I would like to ask you a question. Why did you choose Something to Talk About? Something to Talk About, it gives an impression, but the song you have after, it gives another impression. Let's have
Let's give them something to talk about. Bonnie Raitt, that's
so
right.
that is a very feminine kind of issue, but tell me a little, how did it come about?
Well, Vito, let me dial back a little bit. When I started at Public Access here, quite by accident, I was curious. I had some extra time, quote unquote. I didn't know we had a television opportunity, a television production studio.
This happened to me the same,
In Great Neck,
identical.
I know. And I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, just for the heck of it, just to get out of my own way and get on a stage and tell some humor and make people laugh. I might have been already making them laugh and wasn't aware of it, but I wanted to be aware of it. And I was invited to be a guest on 2 television shows in Great Neck. I had no idea there was a studio, anything about it. I looked around and I said, "What is this?" And people said, "This is Public Access Television." I said, "Well, how do you do it?" They said, "You go across the street to this house called the Office at Public Access, and you sign up and you become a producer and you start doing your own TV shows." I thought that was interesting, so I did that. But before I explain Something to Talk About, my first show was a comedy show called What's So Funny. So if you see a pattern, what's so funny is something you say to somebody, "That's a joke. What's so funny? I didn't get it." And we know some people who people say that to all the time.
Yeah,
You said something funny. What's so funny?
funny?
So I wanted to do a play on words. And then my second show, I did a brief, that was 50 episodes, and it was comedy and improv and character actors with my friends who were doing stand-up and improv with me in
So it
Manhattan.
was more on a creative,
Very. We taped for 3 hours,
Stand-up
and then
comedy.
I divided it into little skits and sketches, and I stitched the shows together, and did 50 episodes of What's So Funny. Then I did a brief show for the Chamber of Commerce here in Great Neck, a business show highlighting businesses called Chamber Vision, 16 episodes. But it dawned on me that I wanted to do a live talk show, and I thought, what would be interesting? A topic people would want to hear about, that would be something to talk about. And at that time, Bonnie Raitt, around that time, had come out with her hit single, "Let's Give 'Em Something to Talk About." I know it's about a love affair, about people falling in love, but it just seemed generically to be a great title for a show about something or somebody or someone or somewhere to talk about.
To me, psychologically, it also meant, especially the song, is that you want to, in a sense, come out and say, it don't matter if people criticize, I'll go do whatever I have to do it.
But that's the essence of what we do at Public Access, Vito. You know that, and I know that. Is we are not trained professionals. We're not journalism experts. We're people with a passion for talking about.
To me, you are a personality. You are a TV personality. And I don't think
Well, you are too.
many people, even on commercial TV, have lasted so long as you have.
Oh,
So
you're
you have been
flattering me.
successful.
Thank you. Well, and then I wanted to add one
yeah.
thing. That was in What's So Funny was in 1995. 96 was a couple of months of Chamber Vision for the Chamber of Commerce. Then Something to Talk About debuted in, I think it was November 1997, with a live show, which was very exciting to me, and I still do it live, about gun control. Still a timely topic, and I had a former very large gun that was no longer in working order, and I pointed it right at the camera.
Oh, my
and I
God.
said, and it was a black backdrop like this, and no
Did
furnishings.
the camera allow
And
that?
oh, yes. And I looked at, I said, depending on which end is pointing at you, whether you're holding the gun or whether the muzzle
other
is
one.
pointing at you, it means different things. Whatever this means to you, this is something to talk about. And that became the way I opened all the shows, but without the gun. Then in 2000, it dawned on me that there was a senior population that might not be as interested in the shows I had already
Okay, we'll
done.
talk about it in a little while.
Okay, I'll get to that.
I'm sure the TV viewers are already familiar with your program, especially we are going to show also some excerpts. But what is it about? I mean, I know, for example, I remember once you had a telethon.
Oh,
Live
yes,
telethon.
I
That
was
was a big thing. And to me, it was out of the world for me because I was new in, and I couldn't believe that we could actually, at a small TV station as we were then,
Yes.
we could put such a big
Well, that was
program.
in 1998. It's nice of you to remember. And that was done for the Great Neck Community Fund. And I volunteered to be the producer or co-producer. And that was a 3-hour live on-stage extravaganza done at Great Neck North High School. And we used the mobile van, production van from Cablevision. It wasn't done here. It was done through Cablevision. And it was very successful. It was a fundraiser. And it was very exciting. I had a friend who is still with us, very almost famous, but one of the best songwriters from the American Songbook. Irvin Drake was a friend of mine. He has written and composed Quando, 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 A Room Without Windows,
I remember
Good Morning,
that. I
Heartache,
remember that.
the score from
That
What
interview.
Makes Sammy Run. Irvin is still
Well,
with
it shows
us.
how flexible you are with the
Well,
programming.
you need resources. So I
Yeah.
asked Irvin to write a song for the community fund, for the telethon. And he got 16 young people, voices from Five Towns Community College, to become a chorus and sing the song. And we enticed acts, performing art acts from all over Great Neck. And I talked everybody into, the hosts would wear tuxedos and gowns. They fought me on that, but I won. It was quite a production, but thank you for remembering.
What type of people you invite in that program?
On
Something to talk
something to talk about? The gamut. Vito, I've done 458 programs since 1997. I still produce the show live every other week about, let's see, during the entire 12 months of the year. So I will invite anybody with an interesting something to talk about. They could be performers, they could be writers, they could be activists, specialists in science, in arts, in humanities, in anything, anywhere, anything.
Do you choose them locally?
Great question. We now have something called the magic of Skype here. We have a new TriCaster computerized production system. And I think even before that, I was bringing in guests remotely. And the reason I do that is I have a radio program called Read My Lips. See, my titles of my shows are all something a little bit, I hope, catchy. And Read My Lips Radio is still on.
But it sounds so
internet.
conservative. You are not that conservative.
Read My Lips. Well, the joke is on radio, Read My Lips, is you can't see my lips talking, so you have to listen. But I find I have some really fascinating, they're mostly new first-time authors, self-published. And once in a while, like last week, I find a guest who has such a compelling topic, but they're nowhere near the New York area. So I invite them to come on by Skype. And we have a wonderful production crew here, headed by Mike Peters at Public Access, who create an opportunity for us to bring in remote guests by the magic of Skype. And they are
We will be
And
talking
it's
about on the second section
Yes.
about the specific.
very exciting.
Yeah, it is an exciting. Anyway, then you have a second program.
Yes.
From this moment on, you for me, dear, only 2:14, dear. From this moment on.
Currently.
I feel attached to that program because, you know, not many people like to talk about the elderly or people who are basically almost out of the society in a sense. And I think you brought people back to that. And I think to me it's very exciting, but also very, I'm really moved by the fact that you, as a sponsor or not a
Co-host.
co-anchor, basically you invite your own mother.
Yes, the show is
Now,
dedicated
this
to my
doesn't happen
mother.
every day,
No.
and especially, I don't think ever has happened where an anchor takes the mother.
It probably does, but not locally. The show is called Senior Moments, The Happy Ones, and there's another play on words.
Have you seen any program on public or private TV that they bring their own mother on a regular?
Possibly. Well, I called my mother. I started the show in 2000 for a couple of friends who were running for local office, some Park District offices, and I said, positions. And I said to myself, we need to reach the senior audience, who are the ones who mostly will be aware of this election, who are interested, have the time to invest in the parks, and let's expose those types of topics to seniors. I did 2 shows, one with Claude Springer, you know Claude, and one with Bob Lincoln. And about a week later, after the first 2 tapings, I was driving in my car somewhere, and all of a sudden tears started rolling down my cheeks, and I had an epiphany or a vision or a visitation. And I'm not a spooky woo-woo person, you know that. And I picked up the cell phone. This is before hands-free. It was on the seat next to me in the car. And I called my mother and I said, Mom, would you like to co-host a new TV show called Senior Moments with me? Because I realized it's not about reaching a senior audience. It's about honoring seniors, and you are the senior who inspires me the most. And my mother said, okay.
Really?
And let's see, that was, Mom's going to be 98 in February 2015, so she's almost there. We're now December 2014. So that was, what, 15 years ago? So she was, oh my goodness, she was
She's still going.
Oh, still going. She was in her early 80s.
But I think the relationship with you and your mother is special, and it comes
lovely.
through the
Thank
TV.
you.
And I believe this is a unique.
It's very special.
It moves me. It's just the fact that maybe because I don't have a mother anymore. So, but I think it's something very special that goes between you and her. And I think at this age to do that is really unique.
Ruth is dynamic. She's very smart. She's beautiful. She takes great care of herself, and she delights in coming to the studio. And I have the host desk, and she's in the first chair next to me, and we always do a little repartee. People have said to me, Bonnie, do you rehearse lines with your mother before? No, I'll say, welcome to Senior Moments, the Happy Ones. I'm Bonnie D. Graham. And then it's Mom's turn, and she'll say, I'm Ruth Dalgo, Bonnie's mom. Or she'll say, I'm Ruth B. Dalgo. And I said, what does a B stand for? And she'll say, Bettina. I said, I thought your name was Betty. And she says, well, I decided to do a fluffy name. It'll be Bettina this week. And we play.
By the way, Bettina was one of my first girlfriends. I must have been 3 years old.
That's funny. So that's we play a little bit, and then we introduce our guests. And Mom is the charmer. She speaks with the guests in the green room.
Well, not
before.
long ago, I think you honored me and my wife.
You and
to be
Carolyn,
part
beautiful
of,
Carolyn. Yes, it was our pleasure.
I hope you felt that.
Oh, it was
It was
wonderful.
worth it.
Wonderful. Long overdue that I interview you, and guess what? Here I am, Vito Di Simone. Woo!
Well, you inspired this program also,
Thank you.
this interview.
Thank you.
Now that we leave your program, I would like to talk about, because I know you know a lot, about the recent success that public access has had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we remember 15 years ago when he was in another office, in another studio, and the limitations. But today, it seems it's flourishing to a point where I fell behind all the time. It goes too fast. Don't you feel the same thing, or? I know you practice the studio much more free, more
Yeah, I'm
frequently
here
than
every
I
2
do.
weeks on a regular basis throughout the year. Vito, I think people are becoming aware that we are legitimate, that we have production values. We may not be NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, or HBO, but we aspire to quality programming that will make the viewers happy, or help them learn something, or inspire them, make them laugh, make them cry, make them say, oh, I didn't know that, or wow, I'm going to try this or try that. Whatever it is, we're legitimate. And I think it's taken years to get away from a bad rep. Mm-hmm. Public access around is all over the country.
Some recognition and credit should go to Shirley Bruno, the
Our
executive director, who has
absolutely.
been here for such a long time, and yet
Over 30 years.
she's always up to it. And I think the professionality that she has shown, and also the atmosphere here is a pleasant one. I find it personally very pleasant and
I'm
very
always
welcoming.
excited. Always excited to come here with my
It's
crew.
not a stiffy place where it's very professional. they are very friendly and welcoming. And,
Well, what's also friendly and welcoming, Vito, is that our crew, our staff, so to speak, our crew are all volunteers. That's what makes it special to me. We're here because we want to be here. We weren't hired by someone. Nobody is paying us. Nobody's going to say, Vito, I don't like that question. We're going to edit that out of your show. You own the show. You
well,
put the
I
show
imagine
together.
that is
Same with me.
That is a condition that the company had to give in to the federal government in order to have some citizens access, and therefore the content may not be controlled by them. Just
It's freedom of speech.
Quality.
It's First Amendment.
We'll talk about freedom of speech in a little while.
Uh-oh.
Well, the thing is, you know, this public access TV, the way I just read or listened to a program by Shirley that it tells about the programs and the hours that they have here. They have over 200 programs. And so what's it, 6,000 hours of programming. That's quite an extensive.
Well, what's wonderful about that, Vito, is it's not all locally produced. It's produced by people in other access centers, or people can produce programs in their basements, their garages, a local park. You've gone and done remote interviews. So Access TV is of the people, by the people, for the people, to repeat a phrase. So people produce shows and send them to us, and we fit them into our programming
But
schedule.
I'm talking about specifically the programs that are generated here. For example, the World War II project.
The veterans.
They even won some recognition.
Yes, they won an Emmy. And interesting, I have to mention to you that on Senior Moments, when the movie World War II came out well over 5 years ago, Ruth and I interviewed 3 local World War II veterans, very elderly, and I don't know if that inspired the series, The Veterans Project, but we had the idea to say to them, what did you think, how do you feel about this movie coming out now? And it was fascinating speaking to these gentlemen.
What do you think about the latest thing? I just found out recently about the North Shore News.
Oh, North Shore News has been on for a while. Yes, that's mostly hosted by young people. Ben Ratner, who used to direct for me, a very, very talented, actually brilliant TV production kind of guy, just freshly out of college, works on it. Stephanie Savage at Public
But it
Access.
requires a lot of organization to do
Organization, they have a newscaster, they have, somebody has to edit, just like any news channel, whether it's 1010 Wins or any news channel, they have to find the articles, edit them, make them into a reproducible form where somebody can actually read a headline and embellish it or add to it. And it's done very professionally. It's a good show.
I think we ought to also include that the youth can come to TV station.
Teen
and
TV?
participate.
Do you know there's a teen TV program here? Just
There's
for teens.
always been, but now I think it
Very
seems to be
active.
very active.
Very, very active.
And how about the playwright program or project?
That's been around for about 20 years.
Norman Hall.
Spearheaded by Norman Hall, former network TV director, and Shirley Romaine, who is our actress and theatrical speaker. She's very well known. Shirley does the interviews with the playwrights, and Norman selects plays from hundreds that come in all over the country. Never produced 15-minute plays, and then they bring in professional actors to produce the plays.
Okay. Of course, we have our own programs. We have not included. For example, there's the Grace Grella.
Grace Grella.
Which has
our
been a long
intuitive.
time, and
Yes,
she
she's
has
been
a
here.
very interacting people that call to her.
Yeah,
every
it's an
time.
interactive call-in show.
Yeah, it's amazing that there is an interaction, even though TV usually people don't have interaction programs.
Grace
but I
designed
think she's
it that
successful.
way. Grace is charming, and she's smart, and she's beautiful, and Grace also is part of the staff here at Public
yeah, it's
Access.
part of the staff.
She's one of us.
And of course, then we have the Mava Shoma.
Mava Shoma, that's Jaffa Soleimani.
Soleimani.
That's a Persian music program with new music from California, and the show, I believe, is all in Farsi.
One of my program also sometimes has an Italian, so we have foreign languages, which I think
Absolutely.
it's very welcoming. And then, of course, we have your programs.
Something to talk about in Senior Moments, the happy
Senior
ones,
Moments.
yes.
And my program, which has been
Italian-American
enduring the last
Writers.
couple of, maybe
That's right.
10 years or more.
I think it's more, Vito. When did you start Italian American Writers?
Yeah, maybe 15 years ago.
Let's give a
But
little
I
credit
started
here.
it once a month having one because I was a challenge for the office. They say, when I applied, they says, "Who are you going to interview?" You know, and they are now Italian-American writers. And since then, now I'm to the point where I could do one every day, but obviously time is
Why
not
not?
there. Well, you need time to dedicate. You have to be serious, and so therefore, you know, age also is beginning to affect
No, I don't think so, Vito.
performances.
You look just the way you did when we met almost 20 years ago.
Really,
You
really.
do, you do.
If I like to change now, talk about the future of TV. Just getting away from the TV here. Obviously, here, PA, public access. The way I see it, I don't know if it has any limit in the next 10, 15 years. It seems it's growing, and so it will be successful. How do you see it? What future do you have for it?
I see the future democratizing TV, which it's already been doing, meaning anybody can have an idea and come in and hopefully get volunteers to help produce. These are not paid production positions. Come in and bring a crew and find a way, I'll use the word elegant advisedly, an elegant way to, or with dignity, to produce some kind of an idea. I think that it's opened up. The only hurdle to expanding our local programming is people come in and say, "Oh, that's a lot of work." Well, yes, it is, but if you're dedicated.
More dedication.
But as far as the future of TV goes, Vito, I started a Vimeo, Vimeo.com channel. It's a free website similar to YouTube, but you get to upload larger files, so you're not limited to just 5 or 10 minutes. I can put 2 30-minute shows on every week on a free channel, and I've been doing that for the past almost 200 shows for both Senior Moments and Something to Talk About. So internet access means on demand.
But the TV,
That's the
what's
future.
the future? No, that's the question is.
TV online is the future.
I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the TV came in. And
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm older than you.
I know that.
Much
Thank goodness
older.
somebody's older than me.
And I remember people were saying, "Oh, this will be the death of the radio because TV, everybody ran to see the TV, and in fact, TV is more exciting." What has happened to the radio, for example?
I'm a professional business broadcast journalist now for my full-time job, and I produce 5 hours of live business content in a roundtable format for. I work for one of the world's biggest business software companies, SAP, and that's my full-time job now. So I know that radio has morphed or transitioned itself from what we call terrestrial stations with the tower and the control
Satellites.
board to being done. Well, terrestrial is on the ground really, not satellite, and then we have Sirius Radio, which is satellite. But radio is becoming the medium has moved successfully to the internet, where it's on demand. I do my
That's
shows
right.
live, but they're also podcast and available on demand. I have listeners to my business shows in well over 200 countries, regions, states. The U.S. states are counted as regions or areas. And I've got about 20,000 listeners a month to a total of 10 different series I produce. I do time slot sharing.
So basically, the future of
It's the
radio and
internet.
TV is
On
an
demand.
internet.
It's on demand. However, here's another thing I want to tell you about. I recently learned, earlier this year, I learned that there is a private production company here on Long Island called Madhouse TV, where some friends of mine who've been on my shows now produce their own TV shows. There is not a channel. There is no studio. It's a place with cameras, and they live stream up to the internet for global access, live and then podcast. They do not have a TV station. It's not Madhouse Channel 22, it's just
Yeah.
Madhouse TV. So you go to the website and you have access to all the shows. So that, I think, is the way TV is going
Well,
to
the
go.
TV is also trying to say
Streaming,
TV
live
on
streaming.
demand, TV on demand, and
That's what it
films
is.
on demand. But yet, it's the internet that has taken over both the radio and the TV.
Yes.
And I don't know what it will happen in the next 20 years.
I don't think it's gonna
Even
knock
though
us
the
out.
TV is not TV itself, it's a production,
Right.
content production, and so is radio in a sense.
I don't think it's
the
going to knock
internet-
out studio productions at all. I think people are still
But
used to.
it will lessen the importance of TV don't you think?
No, I think it's another access method. I don't think it's going to lessen the importance of anything. I think people are spoiled. Some people don't want a TV set that is paying a cable fee. Some people don't want to watch the shows, the mainstream shows on networks. They don't care about the political stations. They want the whole wide world of
Sure.
on-demand access, and that's the world of visual production, which you would call
I find
TV.
myself, I watch more internet now
Sure.
because the subject you want to know
Yes.
about or learn about,
Yes.
it's there, not on TV. TV, you have to watch what they present to you.
I think the menu has expanded. I think we're spoiled. I think we want what we want now, when we want it, how we want it. I want to watch on my iPhone. I
Well,
want
we
to
don't
watch
want to
on
waste
my
time.
iPad. I want to watch on my TV. I want to watch on one of my 3 computers at home. I want to watch what I want when I want it, when I have
so
the
it's
time.
an exciting
It's very exciting.
future.
So I think it's just given us more choices, and we're in this I want to choose mode. I think the world is in I want to choose. Now, when do I have
But
time?
would you say
When?
the radio is still
Very viable.
high, let's say, for people who are on the go, in cars and things like that? Or
Yes, I think radio is...
That's essential.
Any medium where you're going to communicate with people, whether it's TV or radio, what starts at TV or radio, I believe has to have an on-demand version or on-demand flavor that will allow you to reach the audience when they want to watch or listen. And I think that's the importance of surviving TV and radio is on-demand.
Obviously, you are on internet.
Yes.
How can people reach you, or how can they see
Oh.
your program?
Well, if they go to vimeo.com, vimeo.com, they can probably just search for Bonnie D. Graham, or they can go to vimeo.com/channels, CHANNELS, / and the channel number is 170669. So
Oh my
it's a
God, isn't that
specific
too
address.
technical?
Not technical at all, it's a URL, it's an address.
If I go on
Go to Vimeo
Google,
and
let's say,
search
and
for
I
my
put your
name.
name,
You'll
will
find
it
me.
come up?
You will find me. You'll find me radio, you'll find me on TV, everywhere.
Is the TV Bonnie D. Graham TV an internet?
Bonnie TV
is a-
is a website, but I don't stream my shows there. My TV shows are on Vimeo. My radio shows Monday night are on Blog Talk Radio. So the name of the show, if you go to blogtalkradio.com and put in Bonnie D. Graham, Read My Lips will come up, and I've done hundreds of shows there.
Really?
Just Google Bonnie D. Graham. You'll find more than you even want to know.
Well, I like to speak one more subject with
Sure.
you, okay? You are so versatile that today I learned you do things that I did not know, but I know you do also writing.
Yeah.
You were working for the Great Neck newspaper.
I was the co-editor, assistant editor of the Great Neck
But you were
Record
writing.
for a year, yes.
Uh-huh.
1998, way back.
Oh, it only lasted 1 year?
I was just there 1 year. It was in between corporate jobs.
I see.
Yes, but I still do business
But you have
writing.
a talent in writing. I mean, you
thank you.
seem to be free.
I write
and,
all the copy for all my radio and TV shows, so yes, I still write.
Any creative writing perspective for the near future?
I don't know. I don't know. Yes, I don't know creative writing. Maybe I still.
You did not try poetry, for example?
I did a lot of poetry. Back in
No,
the day. I have a
you-
little book of handwritten poems. I wrote
You
100
never
of them.
published them?
Never published them. But
Has anybody seen them?
my family.
Just your family?
They were just personal poems between me and my mother and my children, and
Well, it's
that was
still-
it. Yeah, I have a book somewhere handwritten. I put a gold binding
Maybe
on
one
it.
day it's another program. I
Maybe
would like
one
you
day.
to read your poems.
Maybe one day.
How about prose? Have you tried, or do you have a thing in mind after all?
I was an entertainment reporter stringer, means part-time, for Long Island Entertainment Magazine and for the, I'm trying to think of the name, the Improper Magazine. And I used to go to Westbury Music Fair as a reporter and write up reviews of the late Joan Rivers and the Smothers Brothers and Basha, one of my favorite singers. And I did reports at Neil Sedaka, Johnny Mathis. I reviewed and Long Island Comedy Festival. So I was a reporter writer, but there was a lot of creative bandwidth in those types of reporting.
My question is,
You want me to be a writer next?
yeah, well, creative. For example, you could start writing your own life.
Nobody would care.
experience.
Nobody would care about
How do you
it.
know? Your children would.
My children know who I am. That's fine. They're not going to read about
They
it.
know everything about you?
They know plenty. That's enough. No. But television for me and for you chronicles our lives, who we've been, our journeys over the past 20 years. We've seen you get a little bit older and a little wiser. We've seen me change my hair color 5,000 times. We've seen all of the personal changes, and I think we've created a legacy through public access TV of who we are.
No, but you know, writing is also lasting. At least
I know.
people.
I have a blog. I have a blog.
Oh, you have a
I have
blog.
a blog on WordPress. I also teach blogging, and
Yeah.
I have written about 20
You
blog
also
posts.
teach, which is
Yes, I
something
also
that
teach part-time technology topics. But yes, so yeah, I blog from. That's where I do my creative writing, on my blog.
Oh, okay, please try, because I think you.
Thank you, Vito. You've inspired me.
We have reached the end, and we will have a second part very soon.
Pleasure,
so
Vito.
stay here. Don't
Thank
move.
you.
Thank you very much. I have here Bonnie D. Graham. She is a radio and TV personality, and we have been talking about some of her experience in TV and radio. And now we would like to speak to her about maybe a little more personal, so that the TV viewers may have a little more idea, a better idea of the person that she is. I think she's wonderful and courageous, takes initiative and chances, and therefore I think it will come up, I hope. So thank you again.
Thank you, Vito. Is this Bonnie D. Graham unmasked? Can I leave now?
No. So
Sure.
we did speak about the radio, TV,
Yes.
Which was good. But you know, now if we can, if you don't mind, let's be a little more personal, because then
Sure.
the TV viewers may know more about who you are. I think there is a
Ask
lot
away.
to be known, especially certain things that older TV viewers may find it similar experience, and therefore it will be helpful.
Sure.
After all, we announced. Ooh, I was about to give a forbidden
no.
word, but we are adults, and
Yes.
we can give examples of life
Sure.
conduct.
Sure.
So, now, first of all, you are a New York, not a New York resident, but a Great Neck resident, right?
Yes, for about 28 years.
28 years. You were not born here in Great
I was
Neck.
born in. I was born here. I was born in Flushing, New York. My mother was a nurse. My dad was a doctor, an MD, and I believe our first apartment where I was born in Flushing. And then they built a home in Douglaston.
Ah, it's close.
So I grew up about 3 miles from where I live now. So I'm very, very, very much a New Yorker and a Long Islander.
So you came here later on.
Yes. I went to school at Sarah Lawrence College. I met the man I married, and he was a West Coast guy, and he moved us to Eugene, Oregon, and I lived there for 10 years, and then I dissolved the marriage and came back to New York with my children. But first we lived in let's see, New Haven, Connecticut, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Then we moved cross country to Eugene, Oregon. Then I came back to New York, and that's when I relocated to Great Neck with my children in the mid-1980s.
Boy, you moved around.
We did move around.
I imagine
yes.
he had a profession that took
Well, it
him
was
places.
all, we were students, basically.
Oh, I see.
was
You
at
were-
Sarah Lawrence, he was at Yale University, so I moved to New Haven, and I commuted to Bronxville by train I came down for 3 days every week, 4 days. Sunday night I took the Amtrak, went to Sarah Lawrence in Bronxville, and stayed there, dormed there, and then went back, then stayed with my parents on Thursday night in Douglaston, then took the train back to New Haven on Friday, and I was a wife, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I did that for at least one semester. Then, let's see, then he went to Harvard Architecture, and I had left Sarah Lawrence because as a married couple, we had to go where we're going. So he went to Harvard Architecture, and I transferred my credits to Boston University, and I finished my bachelor's degree with a major in psychology, and I don't remember what a minor was, in magna cum laude in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And by then I had a son, and my son, who is now a corporate attorney, a very, very interesting young man, and a dad, and I have 2 grandchildren with him. He went to Radcliffe Daycare. So Harvard Radcliffe, you know, the sister and brother schools had a daycare program. So I like to say my son at the age of 3 was a Harvard Radcliffe student. And then I went to BU, and I biked my son on the back of my bike during the summers to Harvard Square, dropped him at daycare, then I took the trolley into Boston, went to school, and then came back and did the route. So
What did your husband become as a professional?
he became an architect.
see.
an architect.
What you have been telling me now is that you followed him.
I did,
And then-
until I left him, and then I then I
yeah,
followed me.
But
yes.
In other words, you did to help him a lot, and then
Yes.
eventually things broke up. And,
Yes.
And you don't regret the fact that you were actually helping him become something. It
Not
was.
at all. Not at all.
Now,
No.
you said you have one son who became an attorney.
And I have a daughter who's a physician, an MD. Yes.
Oh, they are adults now.
Oh, yes, yes. They're in their
And
40s.
you have only 2 grandchildren.
2 grandchildren with my son, no grandchildren with my daughter. Yes, she's an MD, pediatric gastroenterologist, pediatric GI specialist, and she just left clinical practice to work for pharmaceutical industry. She just started a new job, and she has a husband, and they're a lovely couple, and they're building a home in North Carolina. That's all I'll say.
So you must be a very proud
I
mother.
am. I'm exceedingly proud, Vito, because I raised my children from the time my daughter was 3 and my son was 8. I raised them as a single mom, as a single working mom, and it was filled with challenges and decisions.
I'd like to know. I wanted to go deep into this single mom challenges. You know, I have to be honest. My mother was also a single mom, and she had to raise 5 kids, and it was not easy.
Wow.
It was not
Well,
easy.
if I raised 2 and it wasn't easy, I can multiply it and
So
imagine.
tell me, because I think you can tell me more about this. It's not easy. Right? Unfortunately, men sometimes they just abscond from their responsibilities, and they find the one excuse or the other to get away. I'm not trying to excuse them, but the fact is, it's a reality, and sometimes, and the woman usually gets up paying.
Sometimes it's the other way around. The woman absconds and the man ends up, and we see that more and more in male custody battles. However, it was challenging. It was scary. I was a very protected and coddled young girl from Long Island, daughter of a doctor and a nurse, in a middle class, not well-to-do, not wealthy, but very comfortable home. I never had to work when I was a teenager. I didn't have jobs. I went to an excellent college. My father was glad to pay for, and I went to summer camp in my teens, and I had my own boat at 18, and I was not pampered, but I knew what a good life was.
Maybe.
And here I was,
too good.
married young, and then 1 child, and then the 2nd child. And then I decided that the marriage was not able to survive. So I made the decision to become a single mom. I didn't have to, but I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Took a tremendous amount of courage. And then I realized I had to support myself. So for the first time,
And then you came to Great Neck.
well, let me start this.
Sure,
At the
sure.
first time, at the age of 27, I was contemplating a life of being alone with 2 children, and I needed to support them because my husband was not a working professional, which was part of the issue, and he was allergic to jobs at that point. He was a creative genius, but not a worker type of a person.
That was not the issue where there was no work around, as it is today, for
was his
example.
choice. His choice.
It's his
he just
choice.
emotionally wasn't prepared to do that. And so I saw the handwriting on the wall. I sought legal advice, and my attorney said, "Get out, take the children, and go to work." Well, what was I going to do? Here I am, 27 years old. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. My goodness, you know, the popular of the 60s, we all wanted to be
Yeah,
psychologists and cure the world or define its problems and make everybody feel better.
Yeah,
Woohoo.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Very popular subject.
So here, talk about family support. Very interesting. Not monetary, a little bit, but here's the deal. I said to my parents, "What am I going to do?" And they started gathering brochures for me of things I could do with 1 or 2 years of extra training or college to become a professional in something. And they mailed me a stack of brochures. They were in New York. I'm in
Concerned
Eugene, Oregon.
parents.
And they were fantastic parents. And I made a whole big fan out of these. I laid out all the brochures, and one stuck out. It said computer programmer. I said, wow, that sounds interesting. It sounds like I could use my brain. What in the world is it? Well, I talked to some couple of
And
friends.
it was a future. That's a really
Big future. Talked to some friends, and they said, guess what? We have a community college 5 miles from here. You could take the bus there. I didn't have a car, was newly divorced, living in an apartment. They said, you could take the bus. One of them drove me there, and I went in and applied. I said, I have a bachelor's degree. They said, good, you can go here. It was not quite free, but pretty darn close.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I want to be in computer programming. And they said, well, it's such a popular class, standing room only filled, but here's the deal. A lot of people will try it, And
then
most
they'll-
of them will drop out. So they said, you will book a seat in this class, this beginning computer programming, programmer analyst class, and stick with it for a couple of weeks, and we guarantee the classroom will be almost empty. Well,
That's what happened.
It's exactly what happened. What happened in those days, Vito, this was in the mid-'70s, is that people were coming out of other professions like architecture, even law, medicine, who were disillusioned and didn't want to do it. And they thought, what could I do with my life? Computer programming sounds like it's the wave of where we want to go. So people were coming from these so-called, from the professions that they decided not to pursue. So I was in a class with not a bunch of 18-year-olds who said, boy, community college, it's almost free, let's try it, I have nothing to do. These were young adults like me in their 20s, even 30s,
Who were changing
careers mid-20s, 30s. So we were a smart bunch. I literally dove into the bottom of the pool for programming. It was a eureka moment. I was consumed and captivated with becoming a programmer. It was amazing. I ended up getting a job working for the community college with my 2-year degree, and I graduated 4.0 on top of my bachelor's degree magna cum laude.
wow.
I aced every test, every class. I was a mom.
Well, you were a veteran then. And
I
you
was
had
a
already
veteran.
graduated.
I had the 2 kids in daycare. Daycare was a block from the
Close by.
apartment. I wheeled my daughter in the carriage and my son hanging on, and they went to Mrs. Buckles, who had a private daycare in
Who
her
was
house.
supporting you then? Your parents?
My parents were helping. I had a little bit of savings. It wasn't a lot of money, but life was inexpensive. It wasn't. I lived in a small apartment. I rented at that time, and life was okay. I had no complaints.
So you started, in a sense,
I studied for-
picking up the pieces.
Totally, but at the same time, I started, the world of disco dancing had started, and I tasted a little bit of it when I came to New York to visit my parents in the summer. So I went back and started meeting people who were disco dancers. I ended up becoming a disco dance instructor with my first class with over 250 people in a high school cafeteria.
Oh, wow.
And I danced on a Formica table in Little Heels with a dance partner.
Talking about flexibility.
Then I became a Mary
adapted to
Mary
every-
Kay cosmetic salesperson. So I started a Mary Kay career. I was dancing on the side. I was teaching dancing, and I was going to school. And then the school hired me.
Was that all of this because of psychology, that you felt insecure?
No.
Obviously, the pressure of having to pay bills was there. No?
Life was just getting exciting for me. I wanted to use my brain. I wanted to help my children. I said to my kids point blank, you want to study French in school when foreign language came up? That's fine. You want to study Spanish? Go talk to somebody else. I have many years of French. I can help you with your homework. Spanish, I'm sorry, off the. So they both studied. We did our homework together. My son and my daughter and I, the 3 of us, like a little unit. They introduced me to Star Trek on TV, which was already in its 2nd lifetime. I never watched it. I was busy.
Oh.
They introduced me to MASH, and we did our homework together. I did my programming on green bar paper, handwriting all my code. I was a COBOL programmer, and my kids did their homework. So we were 3 kids, basically. I tell people they raised me, and I'm very proud of that, Vito.
So what were you doing? While the children were going to school, you went to work? Is it?
I was in school for 2 years, and then I was a full-time employee of Lane Community College, running a statewide community college information system, working with a consultant in another part of the state.
You were free about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock?
No, I didn't get home till 5 o'clock in the
I see.
afternoon. I worked a full-time job right out of school. The college hired me to run this system. They liked my skills. They liked my dedication. So having never worked, at about the age of 29, I went headlong into my first full-time job. The first day I was there, I looked around, I said to somebody, do I have to stay till 5 o'clock? They said, yeah, Bonnie, that's what a job is. I said, I've never had
There was no hour flexibility at
I've
the
never,
time,
I've
I
never had to
imagine.
stay anywhere till 5 o'clock in my life. I never
Wow.
worked. So I was successful in my job, and I became a professional mainframe computer programmer, which I did for several years,
Several years.
before I came back to New York.
Oh, before you came back?
Oh,
to
yeah,
New York.
this was all in Oregon. I stayed many
So
years.
you came to New York?
in 1985.
Your mother, I imagine, was here.
Mom and Dad were here, yes.
I see.
yes.
And not far away from Great Neck, I imagine.
They helped me find the apartment in Great Neck, and they still lived in the house in Douglaston. They were 3 miles away. 5 minutes. It was perfect. It was
Perfect,
wonderful.
I see. So in New York, what is the life that you had in order to support the family? Because I imagine as the children grew and you needed more money for the colleges and the universities there, you know,
Well, we had
medical
some family
school.
support. There was a grandchildren's trust fund on my ex-husband's side, and they
see.
took care of college expenses
So
for
at
all of
least
the
it wasn't,
grandchildren.
so-
Yes, it wasn't that bad. But as far as living expenses, I went to work in Manhattan, and I commuted every day. And the kids went to Great Neck South Middle and Great Neck South High, and I lived in Thomaston in a rental. And I commuted to the city, and I was a mainframe programmer, analyst, and a consultant. And then I switched careers completely.
You never married.
Never remarried, no.
No, no need for that.
It just never happened.
never
I was
happened.
engaged once, but it didn't work.
Tell me, how is life as a single person? I imagine, you know,
Today?
aside from the children, yeah, as an adult, is there place or places where as an adult single person can go and entertain himself or herself?
You're such a long time married. How long have you and Carolyn been married?
I think it's only a couple of years, maybe,
Was it 30 years?
maybe 60 or
60, something like that, right?
No, I do not know
You're out of the
this
loop.
kind, but I'm worried about the
Don't be worried. The key to being a single, I see, is having a hobby, an avocation, a passion. People who dance can go to dance events and clubs all over Long Island. If you like comedy, go to clubs. You meet people, to me, you meet people while you're doing the things you love to do anyway. You meet people who share those excitements or those passions or those interests, and that's how you make friendships that build into romances and some kind of relationship. That's always been, I've been a dancer since forever. I was a ballroom dancer. I had I'll call it an exhibition dancer,
exhibition dancer.
Yes, disco dance. I was an instructor. In addition to Mary Kay and everything else, I was a ballroom dance teacher, and I had a partner.
Now you learned to dance as an
I
adult.
learned to dance as a 10-year-old growing
Oh,
up
I
in
see, I
Douglaston.
see.
I took ballroom lessons at the Arthur Murray, no, the Fred Astaire Dance Cotillion. Taught lessons at the Douglaston Club in Douglaston Manor on the water, where McEnroe comes
yeah.
from. And I was invited to partake, and my parents enrolled me in ballroom. Formal, gloves, stockings, 10 years old, little high heels, my first little roll-up stockings. We learned to curtsy and bow.
So dance was part of your. So
Yes.
as an adult, you
I embraced it.
participated.
I embraced it. As a
As a
new
social-
single in Oregon, I became a disco dance teacher and a ballroom dance teacher, and I had several dance partners, and I entertained at events. That's why I said an
I see,
exhibition.
I see.
We did stage events, my partners and I, and so dancing became very important. So when I came back to New York, the first place I headed
never belly
were discos.
danced?
No, but we've had belly dancers on
I
Senior
rem- I-
Moments, and Ruth got a belly dance lesson from somebody.
I remember. I
Yes.
remember you had a class of.
No, this belly stays covered.
Well, you have told us a little about being single. Of course, there is a dilemma, which I think I sort of have resolved it, but I am, as a man, I can resolve women's problems. It's not.
Don't even try, Vito.
I
Don't even
tried
try.
once. I
No.
made a presentation, and some people booed me. But I did not present my problem correctly. But anyway, there are people like you had to go to work. So there's no dilemma there. You have
No.
to go to work. There's
Absolutely.
no choice.
No
You
choice.
work, and you did the best you can.
work it
My
out.
mother, the same thing. But there are other women today's society where they have a profession. Maybe they are an MD or a lawyer, and they marry some equivalent of their profession, another doctor, another lawyer, and the husband makes good money. So the marriage produces a child or two, and the woman has the dilemma. Should the lady leave the job and raise the child, or should she leave the child with other people, a nanny or something, and then preserve the profession? I think this is a dilemma that probably you did not have to face,
not have.
but it exists today in the world. There are people who are women who are highly professional, and all of a sudden they find themselves with a family and what to do. And I believe that most of them, the way I see it, they have guilt. They have guilt and say,
Either way,
"Oh
you have
my
guilt.
God, I work,
Either
and
way.
my child is I don't know what is doing at the home with somebody, with a stranger." And then if you raise the child, you say, "Oh, I lost my
I lost my
profession, and
momentum
my
and my
income, and
profession."
my
Yes.
livelihood."
Either way, you have guilt. Either way.
You would not have any opinion how to resolve this problem.
Well,
It's-
I'll tell you one solution is I recently on my Read My Lips radio show on Blog Talk Radio, interviewed a young woman who's a professional governess. And I said to her, what's the difference between a babysitter, a nanny, an au pair? We went up the food chain. And a governess. As a governess, she is responsible for the cultural education of the children. She teaches them manners. She teaches them how to speak in polite company. She teaches them how to go to a store and buy something. She teaches them how to sit at a dinner table and eat among polite company. She is not just a babysitter. She's a guidance person. She takes them places. She even resolves disputes between young siblings and gets them to respect each other. So she's like not mother's little helper, but mommy's big helper. And that was an eye-opener to me that there are, and she's a young woman who also has a second child on the way. She brings her toddler to the job, and that child becomes friends with but she works for well-to-do New York families, where the mother does go to work because she chooses to have a career.
But the
So that's one
situation
solution.
is a little different. It's from the mother's perspective, because I know, I have heard and I've seen women who actually have this dilemma. They feel guilty if they leave the child alone, and they feel guilty if they have to leave their job.
Both ways. That's how I say it's a double-edged sword. The guilt is on either side. It's a guilt-edged sword.
Yeah. But my solution would be, and see if you can,
Yes, okay.
is, let's say a doctor, an MD or a lawyer, has a baby, and she can actually leave the job
She has
and
flexible.
go back and raise the child until
Yes.
the baby is 10 or the children
It's
are 10,
flexible.
12, and takes care 100%. And then after that, when the children go to school, they are adult, mature, understand what the...
Or she could work part-time. If she has a practice, and
yeah.
with partners, she can work. Let me tell you.
But the question is that while she's at home, she's 100% mommy and secure and fine. But then after 10, 12 years, she comes back to the profession. I think a lawyer or a doctor or some other profession, it may be more difficult to reintegrate, but it's there. You're a doctor, people will listen to you and will...
I would love to hear from your viewers who are doing this. I would seriously doubt that a woman who spent many years going through professional training would walk away 100% for 10 years. I don't see that.
But you don't think that would be advisable to do? In other words, you can do one and
think
then the other. You don't have to do both at the same time, because then you feel
to me,
guilty.
you can do both. You can balance.
So the solution could be, is that the first 5, 6 years you dedicate at home. Forget about the job. The job is always there. Work will always be waiting for you, no problem. You may have difficulty getting back to it, but eventually you do. But then when you come out and you say, I'm a mother, I took care of my children, I feel responsible and I feel glad about it, then you go into profession. Nobody can really stop you, because you don't have any more that sense of that you
Some
abandoned
jobs,
the family.
yes, and it depends on the culture of the company or the industry where you want to work or where you want to return. I think it's a tough decision, Vito. It's a very personal decision. It takes a lot
Cannot
of...
be generalized.
I don't think it can be generalized at all. I'm just going to mention Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. Sheryl Sandberg, very powerful woman, very wealthy woman who said, lean into your job. And some people say, lay back, lean back, wait for the job and the culture to come to you. It's a huge decision, but there's so much writing in popular culture today where women can get guidance and advice. But it depends on who your children are. Do your children require full-time care?
Of course.
Depends on your social situation. Do you have a sharing situation with an ex-husband? Depends on the gender of the couple. We have a lot of same-gender couples who are facing the same dilemma today. Everything has changed since the time when I was a single mom, Vito. And since you were wondering, gee, I'm glad I married Carolyn and we've been together for 50 or 60 years, where you didn't have to worry about it. It's a very personal decision.
She went back. She
did.
I mean, to be honest, with the children, she stayed at home for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Then she became a teacher, and she went to teach, and her life is fulfilled. And I think she never felt that guilt that say, oh my God, my children are at home, and I don't know what's happened to them.
Well, the big question for me is, if I had stayed married, happily married, and my husband had,
You would have stayed home.
decided to or been able to earn a living, would I have stayed home, and how many years? That's the question, because at that point in time, I was not trained as a programmer. I had no profession other than a degree in psychology.
Maybe that's something good that came out of it.
But I do want to mention something, Vito. When I came back to New York as a programmer analyst, I did a 360 career change and fell into marketing, and that's when I became a writer. That's when I became a video producer. That's when I went into the
job
corporate
demanded
world,
it.
and I morphed. I self-taught desktop publishing, newsletter production, corporate videos, writing annual reports, creating business divisions for companies, and I became a marketing professional. And then I accidentally started in stand-up comedy, as you know, and then invited on TV, and then invited to be a guest on radio, and that's when my radio and TV career. So I have reinvented myself more times than I can even imagine.
But that's because you're
Quite a ride.
exceptional.
Quite a ride.
Quite a ride. There's one more issue that I like to talk to
Okay.
you about, and it has to do with today.
Okay.
It's in the news.
Okay.
And it has to do with right of speech or the right to
Yes.
expression. As you know, we have a film interview, which
Mm-hmm.
was forbidden. Sony that produced it decided not to give it
Actually,
away.
I saw the interview on
You did see it.
Fareed Zakaria on CNN interviewed the CEO of Sony yesterday morning, and he said they didn't decide to. The theater owner said,
It
we're
did-
not going to
decided
show the
to,
film.
yeah.
So there was a boycott
My
from
question
the theaters.
is, at one point, I knew that my freedom was free. I was free to do anything I wanted as long as I did not infringe upon other people's rights.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now I see people having the right to do anything they want, like say desecrate or talk bad. Even it suggested that we should kill head of state with impunity. I mean, we say we have the right to do so because this is an American freedom that we have. But in fact, aren't we being bullies or forget about the right of others? We want us to be free, but then the others are not.
Not everybody gets what we stand for. Not
I mean,
everybody.
there's a great, for example, religion or institutions, the venerable institution. It's a problem. What do you say? It's
I say two letters, PC. Those two letters came into being many years ago, politically correct. I say be aware of your audience. Even as a comic, I was careful not to offend if I saw one cultural group. I never did cultural or chauvinistic humor, but they say there were rules of thumb even on stage in comedy. Don't offend a group unless you're a member of that group. I'm Jewish. I could say things about Jews in comedy, but not about Asians because I'm not Asian. So there's always a fine line. It's called taste, it's called respect, and it's called comedy. Torpedoes be damned. I don't know, not to use a bad metaphor, but I would say that we want to protect our freedoms. We don't want to be bullied.
but we have to respect other people's freedoms at the same time.
We do, but you
huh?
have to know the consequences. And the consequences today are cyber attacks and terrorism. And you have to be aware that if you step in the wrong puddle,
Yeah, you
it gets
create,
splashed.
and that's
So
the
it's
result
up,
today.
Up to each person to be cautious. As a TV producer, I'm careful what I say on my television
Taste.
show because I have a wide audience and I don't want to offend them. I want to pique their interest. I want to inspire them. I want them to say, "Oh, that's something I didn't know." But I don't want hate mail coming to me. So you and I both on TV. I think we're both very careful to not offend.
You have to be because it goes
Very.
into the audience. And you
Same
don't
way
know
on
who
my
they are.
radio show. I try to be very careful
So-
within reason.
Within reason, obviously.
Provocative but not offensive.
Okay, we have basically reached the end, but I have something else, a surprise for you.
A surprise for you. You're such a magnificent person. Thank you so much.
Carolyn, thank you.
Thank
The
you.
beautiful Vito.
I think you deserve that and more.
Oh, they're beautiful.
you're-
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so honored to be a guest on your show.